When you type a command in, you'll typically see some kind of output. But what if you wanted to do something with that output? Maybe you want to save the listing of a directory to a file. This is exactly what redirection and piping allow us to do. Redirection allows us to redirect input and output of commands to and from files, as well as connect multiple commands together into pipelines. Piping allows us to send the output of one command as the input of another. Now you can start to picture how we can use both of these to create pipelines, and it's actually quite creative because this means that there are multiple ways to get to a very similar result. Let me show you. Let's start off with redirection. So first I'm going to just list a directory that I have. It's going to be the user bin directory. And you can see there's a bunch of details in here. What if I wanted to save this to a file? Well, this is something we can do with redirection. Let's type in that same command. ls stands for list, the -l stands for long, so it's a listing with more details. And then we're going to provide that same directory. And this time we're going to use something called the redirection operator, which is the greater than symbol. Finally, we're going to provide a file name for our output to be saved to. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. Now this is a new file, so it gets created. But say you already had this file and you run this command, since we're using the redirection operator, it's going to get overwritten. So if I do this cat, which will just output the contents of the file to the screen, we can see it's the same as what we got before when we actually listed to the screen. We do have the option to append. So say we do something like hello, echo hello, and then in this time we'll use the append redirection operator and we'll provide that same file name. Now I print out the contents and we can see it's the same, except at the end the hello was added. Alrighty, let's take a look at piping. So I'm going to clear the screen. Using the pipe operator, which is this one right here, the output of one command can be piped into the input of another. Let's use the list command with the head command. So what we can do is type in ls-l of that same user bin directory that we've been using, pipe operator, head. There we go. Might be able to make this a little bigger so it's easier to see here. Alright, so you can tell that from the first time that we ran this command where we listed straight to the screen, we got a lot more of output. The output in this case is 10 lines, and the head command lists a certain amount of lines of output. And the reason there's only 10 is because head, when you don't provide how many lines you want outputted to the screen, it's going to default to 10. If I were to do head-5, you can see we only get 5. Now we can combine redirection and piping and in order to better filter and really customize the output that we want. So let's clear the screen and let's do something like ls.l, that same directory, and then say I want just 5 lines, the first 5 lines, and we're going to create a new file called sample1.txt. Fantastic. So now I print that out to the screen, and you can see we only have 5 lines here because what happened is the list command sent its output to head, then head grabs the top 5 lines of that output and sends it to sample. Now we can also use the append here. So what if we did something like ls-l? By now you should be very familiar with this ls command. And this time we're going to use something called tail, which is very similar to head, except instead of grabbing the top n number of lines, it's going to grab the bottom n number of lines. So now I'm going to say tail-5. Again, it uses 10 by default. I'm going to get 5, and then instead of overriding, I'm just going to append to sample. And now if we print that out, We can see there's more in here, and then this is the bottom 5 lines. We'll clear this, and that is it for this demo. Alrighty, that's it for this demo. We've reviewed piping and redirection. We know how to redirect the output of one command to a file. We explored how to pipe the output of one command to another, and even save that output to a file. We also briefly touched on the head and tail commands, and we realized how creative and beautiful the command line can actually be. Alrighty, Cloud Gurus, that's it for this episode of ACG Fundamentals. Go on and get creative with some of these commands, and let us know how it went in the comments. Keep being awesome, and I will see you in the next one.